Hello everyone and welcome to Big Rock Moto. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Today I'm going to give you a review of the Aoocci C6 Pro. It's a motorcycle GPS system for navigation so you don't get lost. Do you like that? Yeah? Why did you put makeup on this morning?
Yes.
Did you put on kids makeup?
Yes.
Why is that, huh?
Because I want to be beautiful in the film.
Oh, you're always beautiful, okay? You don't need makeup. Some disclaimers as we get started here. This video is sponsored by Aoocci. I do earn commissions when you use my affiliate link, and I did get this product for free. And number 4, this is really not a long-term review, so I can't speak to the long-term durability of the product, but I have been using it for a little while, and I'm going to give you my best review that I can. You might be wondering, why am I making all these product videos, especially these sort of CarPlay, Android Auto, motorcycle tablet navigation gizmos? Why am I doing so many of them? Well, number 1 is that this is an extremely popular addition for people putting on their motorcycles. I look at all the data out there. I see what people are buying through all the affiliate links, and these kinds of products are extremely popular. So part of my job here at Big Rock Moto is to review as many of these types of products as I can. You can then watch all the videos once I've reviewed all the products in the category, and you can decide which one is going to be best for you. Also, to be very honest with you, the affiliate income from selling stuff like this through my links is substantial, and it allows me to offset the fact that I actually lose money doing my in-depth motorcycle reviews. So this allows that kind of work to continue, so I hope that makes sense. All right, so today's video we're going to talk about the Aoocci C6 Pro, but I've also done videos on this, the Carpuride, and I'll link some of those below. And I've also done videos on some of the previous Chigee products. This is the AIO6, which is coming out anytime now, and I'll be doing a full in-depth look at this product, which is pretty cool. So what I'm saying is you can look at all the reviews out there on the different products and then hopefully decide which one is best for you. Are you in charge now?
Yeah.
Oh. All right, so what is the Aoocci C6 Pro? So this is a Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, motorcycle navigation and infotainment device. It has a 6.25-inch touchscreen. It comes with, included with the price of under $200 with my discount. It comes with tire pressure monitoring and front and rear dash cams. Speaking of my discount, if you use my link, it should automatically apply the discount. So I think it's like somewhere around a 20% discount, somewhere in there. But basically it brings the advertised price from $219 down to $170 plus tax and shipping. So that's a pretty crazy deal. Now, why not just get a quad lock phone mount or whatever and put your phone on the handlebar of your motorcycles and just use your phone? Why even bother with something like this? Well, using your phone on your handlebars is a very good option, and it works for many, many people. And I do it very often because I'm often riding bikes that are not mine, that I'm just testing for a couple weeks, and that's a great option for me to do. However, there are some reasons why you may want to have something like this and why you also may not want to mount your cell phone, your smartphone on your handlebars. One is that when you put your smartphone on your handlebars, you're exposing it to the sun, to the rain, to the dust and mud if you ride off-road. If you drop your bike, if you're an adventure rider, you're exposing it to that kind of shock and abuse. Plus, it's prone to theft. And a cell phone, I don't know about you, but my phone was like $1,200. So this thing at $170, I'd rather break this than break my $1,200 cell phone or have it get stolen. The other benefits of this product in particular, the C6 Pro, is that this gives you some really nice safety features like tire pressure monitoring, which can really save your butt. If you have a leaking tire, this will alert you to that. Plus the dash cams, if you're in an urban area where there's a lot of accidents or you need the security of a dash cam, and a lot of you do need that, then this is going to be a great option for you to have. Another benefit of this is this comes with a handlebar remote control. So to control your cameras and your phone and some of the functions of the device, you have a remote that you can put near your left handlebar grip, and that's a really cool option, and your cell phone doesn't have that. All right, let's unbox this and get this thing installed on the bike. So you can see the unit here with the wires, got some instruction manuals, and then you've got all your mounting brackets, hardware, cables. It looks a little intimidating, but it's actually not as bad because you won't end up using all this stuff. You've got your power wires, everything you need to get this installed. They're pretty generous with supplying plenty of parts and different kinds of mounts to get it mounted on your bike. There's the remote as well. Tire pressure sensors. And here we've got some of the wires for the cameras, and then finally a USB cable if you need it, and then a sunshade, which I did install on mine. Next step in your installation process, you're going to have to assemble the brackets that will mount the cameras to the bike. So it just takes a few minutes with the included tools to get the cameras assembled and put together. And you can do the alignment, the rotation of the cameras again later on the bike once you have things installed. Here we are installing it on the bike, so find a mount in the kit that works for your particular bike and go ahead and get that mounted up, and then get the unit positioned how you want it. You can play around it. It's kind of like using RAM mounts if you've ever used them, so you can play with your goals, and you have lots of good options for mounting it to your bike. Here I am installing the wiring. So doing the electrical wiring for the cameras and the power and all the stuff, that's what's going to take the longest in this process. So you've really got to route things, make sure you don't get things pinched, zip tie things, attach things, find a way to route things on your particular bike. You're going to end up with a lot of extra wire, and I didn't have a lot of time to make it pretty on my bike, but you can do that on your bike if you want to hide the wires better. Now, when you do the wiring, make sure you hook up to an accessory outlet, so something that is powered only when the bike is on. If you hook it to the battery, the unit will never turn off. Here I am installing the tire pressure sensors. Be careful when doing this not to over tighten things and loosen up your valves. So just be very gentle when you're doing this, but they do give you the tools that you need to go ahead and do it. So if everything is working right, when you power up the bike, the unit will automatically come on as long as you've connected it to accessory power or switched power. It'll just take a second to boot up, as you can see here. And then once this boots up, you will end up on the home screen where you can figure out where do you want to go from here. So you can see the home screen here and the touchscreen abilities and showing you some of the cameras. You can customize how the cameras work. You can also go in and look at your playback files. It has loop recording, so it will automatically delete your older recordings, and you can configure how you want all of that to function on your unit. Now, you will need an SD card, which is not included, to go ahead and record stuff. Here I am messing with the tire pressure settings. You can change from PSI to bar, and you can change from Celsius to Fahrenheit. You can set tire pressure warnings for too high or too low, and that's a really, really nice feature to have. Here I am playing with Android Auto. This is Google Maps, you can see here, and it's pretty responsive using it. Not perfect, but I would say pretty responsive and usually works pretty well. You could use all sorts of applications from your phone. On highway with the unit, you can see the screen is large and pretty bright, although it could be a little bit brighter if in a perfect world. And everything works just as you would expect from a tablet like this. You can use all your functions for your phone, your navigation, your mapping, your communications, your cameras. With the handlebar remote, you can see here I'm using it to switch between different camera angles, and you can switch between Android Auto and the cameras. You can use a lot of stuff with the included remote, and then use your map or whatever you want to do. And it works really, really well. All right, what are the pros and cons to the C6 Pro? I've been testing it for a little while now, and I'll give you some feedback. And I'm always trying to be as honest as possible with these reviews, giving you a balanced outlook at both the pros and the cons, because everything has pros and cons. So for me, the pros on this, compared to the other units like this I've tested, and I've tested pretty much all of them at this point, this is an incredible value. For under $200 with my discount, you're getting front and rear cameras, you're getting tire pressure monitoring, you're getting the remote, you're getting everything, and a pretty big screen for 170 bucks. It's crazy, and nobody else can really touch that right now. Another pro for me, it's a good screen size. 6 1/4 inch is a nice size It's not too big, it's not too small. I think it works well. Plus, with the screen, you get the auto adjust brightness feature. So when you're riding at night versus daytime, you get that auto adjusting brightness, which is a nice thing to have. Another pro to this, but also a con in a way, is that it does actually have a GPS receiver built into it. Now, I'll get to this in a second, but it doesn't really have its own mapping application native to the device, so it still really relies on some sort of app from your cell phone to show you a map. But it does give you GPS information in terms of coordinates and things like that on your dash cams, and there is a phone app which then you can use for some sort of route tracking purposes. But I would have liked to seen some sort of native mapping application because it has a GPS receiver, which its competitors don't have. I would have liked to have seen that. Would have just been a nice sort of backup in case your cell phone is broken or stolen or something like that. You'd have that backup almost like you do with a Garmin navigation device. Another pro to this is, we've talked about the tire pressure sensors, but the fact that it gives you the temperature of your tires, I think that's a nice data point to have. If you see your tire getting super, super hot, you might want to consider that. So it's a nice thing to be able to see the temperature. Also, the fact that it includes the handlebar remote control. On the latest versions of this, it's a wired remote. They used to have a wireless remote, and they had a few, I think, issues with that, so they've gone to the wired remote, which I think is a good thing, and it's really a handy feature to have. All right, so what are the downsides to this? So I'm gonna be really thorough with listing some of the things that I don't like. Just the areas of improvement, I think you could say. And considering the fact this product is around a $200 price point, I'm really forgiving about these things, but I do wanna list them anyway. So the touchscreen, sometimes the touchscreen is not super responsive. In certain situations, I may have to click something twice to get it to go. Usually it works fine, but just sometimes, I don't know if it's a lag in the software or if it's an issue with the touchscreen touch feature itself, but I did want to point that out. It's not always perfect. Another downside, the hardware, the mounting hardware and the brackets and stuff for the cameras and then mounting the unit to the bike that it comes with, they're a little bit on the plasticky or cheap side. I know they have updated it since this first came out, but I still would like to see a little bit better hardware. It makes the install process a little bit more fiddly, and I don't know, it just doesn't seem like the sturdiest, highest quality hardware. So I would like to see that improved a little bit. I already mentioned this as a downside, but I feel like it should have a mapping application built into it in case you didn't want to use your cell phone applications mirrored to it through Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. Because you have that GPS receiver, I'd just like to see that extra step. Another thing is that the tire pressure sensors, when I measure them with my gauge, I have some pretty accurate gauges, because I do this kind of stuff for a living. So when I measure against my gauges, I find about a 10% error. So this reads about 10% lower than my gauge does. So to give you an example of that error, if this is reading about like 20 PSI and I measure my tire with my gauge, I get 22 PSI. So it's reading a little bit on the low end. It's almost like, I don't know, maybe that's a safety feature because people tend to have less pressure in their tire than they should oftentimes. So I'm not sure, but I did want to point that out, that I am getting about a 10% error on the tire pressure. Another potential downside, it's not really downside of the unit, but just something to be aware of when you're using these screw-on tire pressure sensors, whether it's with this product or those standalone tire pressure sensors you've seen out there, which I've also used. When you screw those on the valve stem, be really careful about your valve stem. You can unscrew the valve stem from the motorcycle wheel, especially if you have like a tubeless wheel. So be careful when tightening and loosening that. Just follow the instructions, be gentle with it, because you potentially could mess that up. It's not something you're doing damage, it's just something that you might run into. Another thing, I wish the screen brightness was just a little bit more. I've used some other products that have a little bit brighter screen, so I would like to see that. It's adequate, and you can see in the videos here, the videos are very hard to capture the brightness or dimness of a screen while riding a motorcycle in the daytime. It's very hard to show that, but it's good enough. I don't think many of you will have a problem with it, but I would just like to see a little bit brighter. Another downside is they made the unit waterproof. Now the SD card slot, along, I believe, with the USB port is under a little plastic cover that seals out the water. The plastic cover has two tiny screws like you'd have on a pair of eyeglasses. And so you need a tiny screwdriver, which they do include to their credit. But that is a little bit fiddly. If you want to take the SD card out to transfer footage to your computer or something from your dash cams, you're going to have to deal with those little tiny screws. Although there is an app for your phone which you can use, and I'm not sure how often you're going to be really doing that, but just something I wanted to point out. Another downside for me, I'd like to see a physical power switch. So the way that it works is that you wire it to accessory power. You cannot wire it directly to your battery because then the unit will never turn off and your battery will die. But you need to wire it to accessory power, which creates a little bit more difficulty with the install, but you are going to have to locate a switch power source on your motorcycle. But I would have liked to have seen a physical power switch. I just think that would be nice to have, and I'm kind of unsure why they didn't include that. All right, so my final thoughts on this product. I reviewed this product and I agreed to do this because, again, a lot of you are purchasing things like this. This is a very high volume item out there that people are looking at because they're very useful. This being probably the best value that I've seen. I know there are some cheaper units like floating around on Amazon, but they don't have the functionality, the features, the tire pressure sensors, the cameras, and all that this does. So this, I think, is maybe the best value of all these products. So I really wanted to go ahead and review this. I hope this review has been useful and balanced and informative. Again, I have the discount there with my link, so use that if you're going to order it. If you have questions for me, reach out down below and I'll get back to you. Thanks for watching. Ride safe. I'll see you out there.